Motion 8D. The fourth motion concerns asylum seeker decisions and is to be moved by Councillor Eckersley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So today I address a pressing issue that reflects the failures of the Trafford Labour administration regarding the recent decision to use the Cresta Court Hotel as accommodation for asylum seekers. This decision was thrust upon our community without any prior consultation or notice, leaving residents bewildered and concerned. Councillor Ross mentioned that this needs to be dialed down. However, 6,000 people beg to differ, over 6,000 and increasing. Conservative councillors wrote to Councillor Tom Ross on the 5th of November, from which there has been no reply and no action, even though Councillor Ross, as stated himself this evening, knew about it on the 8th of October. The lack of communication is astounding. Many only discovered this change when their planned events at the hotel, including weddings, were cancelled. This is not just poor governance, it is a complete disregard for the residents of Trafford. The Labour administration has failed to ensure that those affected by such significant decisions are informed and involved. Councillor Ross, our council leader, previously spoke with clarity when the government was Conservative around expressing concerns about similar situations. He stated that such decisions should not be made without dialogue and planning. Yet now, under a Labour government, we see a troubling silence from him. The only thing that has changed is the political landscape, and it seems the party loyalty has silenced our Labour leaders when they should be advocating for our community. Furthermore, we must consider the implications of our already strained resources. An additional 296 asylum seekers will put unprecedented pressure on local services that are already overburdened due to widespread mismanagement from Trafford Labour. Did local businesses and residents receive any notice to prepare for this influx? No. The location of the Cresta Court Hotel near several schools raises serious safeguarding concerns. The anxiety has caused among residents could have been mitigated with proper risk assessments and planning, none of which occurred. Instead, community tensions have risen due to the lack of transparency from this administration. And even though the Labour Council will suggest that there is no risk, the fact of the matter is that simply the perceived risk will concern residents enough to change their behaviours, whether it's shopping or nightlife activities or simply how children get to school in our community. Local businesses have been left in the dark. The absence of a business impact assessment means that they are now facing financial losses due to cancelled events and reduced patronage. At a time when our nighttime economy has been thriving, this administration should be protecting it, not jeopardising it through poor planning. Finally, we must address the implications for Trafford Council's resources. This sudden decision places additional pressure on an already stretched budget. While funding from the Home Office is promised, can we trust it will be adequate? Past experience suggests otherwise. In conclusion, I urge this Council to hold the Labour administration accountable for its failures in communication and planning. We must advocate for our residents and businesses and ensure that their voices are heard in decisions that affect their lives. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded by Councillor Hancock, please?
Seconded, Madam Mayor, and I reserve the right to speak.
Council will be aware of an amendment to this motion. I now invite Councillor Parker to move the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm moving this amendment as per the document sent out to all councillors. Although the Labour group agrees with some concerns raised in this motion, the Conservatives have failed to acknowledge that they were the architects of a broken asylum system that has led to a significant backlog in the processing of asylum claims. The real impact on local resources comes from 14 years of Tory austerity at Westminster, and it seems a bit rich to blame a Labour government that has been in office less than a year for the record of the last Tory government that failed to tackle the issue properly. The Home Secretary is committed to ending hotel use, but the reason we are in this situation today is that the government inherited a position where there were record numbers of those seeking asylum placed in hotels, costing taxpayers £3 billion a year. And let's not forget the £700 million their party wasted in government to send 4 people to Rwanda. So when they talk about stretched resources, they should consider how much our local communities could really do with that money right now. There have been legitimate concerns and questions raised by residents, and the Council is working to answer and assure them. But as councillors, we should be working to ease community tensions and not inflame them. At a meeting of faith representatives from across Trafford and Greater Manchester this week, people were asked what their most pressing concerns are. and almost everyone in the room made the same points, that they are scared about the impact of misinformation and fake news, and the use of social media to stir up racial hatred and anti-immigrant rhetoric in our communities. The impact that this has on community cohesion is so dangerous. We only have to look at the recent riots to know the dangers that stoking up hate and fear can do in our communities. During the riots, we witnessed violence and disorder, mindless attacks on the homes of those seeking refuge in the UK, as well as on mosques, businesses, and community venues. Speaking with residents in Trafford exposed that people felt real fear during this time when simply going about their lives because of the colour of their skin and because of their religion. This amendment highlights the importance of what communities receiving those seeking asylum need. And this includes good communication, as people are right to want to know what is happening in their communities, and this is why the frequent updates from the council leader, as well as the frequently updated Q&As, have been very helpful for our residents. And at a time when our resources are already so stretched, people are right to want to know how the decision made by the Home Office might impact them. And that is why the amendment speaks to the importance of addressing community concerns constructively and reducing tension. But no one has the right to dehumanize another person, to refer to human beings as influxes, and use inflammatory anti-migrant rhetoric that risks the safety of our borough by stirring up hate. Thank you, Mayor. I hope this amendment will be supported by all councillors.
Councillor Coggins, could you second the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We were keen to work across party as this is an issue about community cohesion. This amendment asks us to change our language to using person-centred language. The phrase asylum seeker has become very loaded in our culture. By thinking of our newcomers as people seeking asylum, that changes how we see it. We realise that these are real individuals with lives, fears, families, and maybe even hopes. Unless we take very serious action on the climate crisis, we also know that far more people will be forced to flee their homes in the future. Every one of the men that we are welcoming into Altrincham is somebody's brother, dad, uncle, friend, and was once somebody's baby boy. This is a change for our area, and it is understandable that people will have worries, queries and concerns, and as local councillors we have been working hard to share accurate information as appropriate, and we want to support our existing residents, our local businesses and also our newcomers. It's been really reassuring that our research has shown that although people often have concerns, there is absolutely no evidence of any increase in crime or antisocial behaviour when people seeking asylum move to a hotel near you. Now, as Greens, we don't actually want to see anyone staying in hotels like this for long periods of time. The government needs to seriously speed up the time that this is taking to process claims. We would also like to see people allowed to work while their claims are being processed. In other countries like Germany, Sweden, Spain and Canada, people can do this already. But crucially, the most horrendous part of the journey to this country is the often deadly journey across the sea. Nobody takes this journey lightly. We can't wake up to any more horror stories of people drowning on their way to our country. Instead, it's time for us to wake up to our responsibilities and to work internationally to create safe routes for people to enter this country. It's time for our government to say, this must stop. We have been heartened by the inclusion, empathy and compassion that so many residents in Altrincham and around the area have shown, and the support work being done by local voluntary and faith groups, by the Altrincham Hub and by many individuals. Now, our new arrivals are residents in our ward of Altrincham, and I wanted to share some of their words. Quoted in the MEN was Abila Lokla, who is from Syria and is staying at the Cresta court. He's just 19 years old, so by my calculations, he must be roughly about 6 when the civil war in Syria started. He said, "The journey was very challenging. I came for safety. In Syria, the situation is war. It is not safe. The journey across the channel was very risky." And finally, I would like to appeal to our Conservative friends in the Chamber to work with us and to take a more compassionate approach, building community cohesion rather than sowing division. I'm not saying that it will be easy. Few of the things that we deal with in this chamber are. Residents and local businesses will have questions and worries and will need our support. But the bigger the challenge, the more important it is that we work together as a council and as a community. I'll leave you with the words of US Congressman Ted Lieu, who said, "Refugees don't make our country less safe, but xenophobia, fear and hate do."
The amendment has been moved and seconded. I invite speakers in respect of the amendment to combine speeches on the amendment and the motion. Each member wanting to speak will only have one opportunity to address the chamber. After these speeches, I will move directly to a vote on the amendment and then, without further debate, a vote on the motion. Would you raise your hand if you wish to speak, please? Thank you. Councillor Harding, please.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 31st of January 2024, Councillor Evans and his Conservative group put forward a motion to the Council, which was wholeheartedly supported by all parties. This motion was based on the local government campaign Debate Not Hate, a campaign that I'm very proud to have been involved with. And Councillor Evans himself stated, "I could never have imagined the level of abuse and ridicule that is directed at elected officials for simply having a different worldview." He went on to say, "Some of my colleagues have been subjected to sexist, homophobic and racist abuse just for advocating valid views." And Councillor Evans talked about two views that are worthy of respect. He went on to say that emotive issues can indeed go on to an uncomfortable place, and that rather than debate, it can very often end in abuse, intimidation and ridicule that isn't just restricted to social media, because as he well knows, it does impact more widely on personal and private lives, with councillors and MPs becoming a target for absolutely vile abuse. And Councillor Evans spoke about politicians stepping away from politics due to bullying and intimidation. And I think we can all confidently say in this chamber that we have been witness to and subjected to some of this. The very fact that councillors and MPs are requiring security to carry out their democratic duty is frankly terrifying. The whole Debate Not Hate campaign notes that if left to continue, negative and unacceptable behaviour can prevent elected members from representing their communities they serve. It deters individuals from standing for election and it undermines local democracy. The Debate Not Hate campaign has received support from across the political spectrum. We in this council chamber spoke about emotive issues that had impacted our lives and we endorsed this campaign. We as councillors agreed to continually promote diversity and inclusion ahead of the next local elections and beyond, including diversity of thought, publicly condemning politically fuelled abusive behaviour. I accept that the motion we are debating this evening will evoke some very genuine fears and concerns for the residents we represent. It is our role to hear them and respond in the best way that we can. As local politicians, we are all too aware of the views that some of the public may hold about elected representatives. It is not our role to add fuel to those views. We live in incredibly challenging times where threats and anger directed towards politicians appears to be the norm. I, for one, do not accept this, And I want to remind politicians of the pledge we made when we agreed to that motion. We call it out and we debate, not hate. Just a reminder, when we are discussing these emotive issues, we debate, not hate. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. In light of the number of people that want to speak and the time remaining, I'm going to limit to a minute. So if we could have Councillor Minnis next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. People flee their home country as a last resort. I'm sure a number of you have heard me speak before about my father's journey here as a disabled teenager, fleeing Uganda with his parents, and then he volunteered to help process the exodus in 1972 of the Ugandan Asians. Those people came here, they were welcomed and processed properly. They were integrated into society and shared their skills in their new neighbourhoods. There's one particular part, a lot of them, the original Tory motion angered me, but there's one particular part that really, really got me. And I couldn't quite believe that someone would dare repeat it in here. Schools are by their nature all over residential areas, so that children can attend a school nearby, especially primary schools. In the original Tory motion, point 5, which I could not believe got repeated by Councillor Eckersley, has angered me. All populations have a proportion of people who become criminals. All populations also have highly skilled and talented people.
Could you wrap up, please,
I
Councillor
will
Minnis?
do. The asylum seeker population is no different. To say that they pose an increased safeguarding risk is gaslighting. And it's exactly what point 4, strangely, in Council believes states. Now, gaslighting is a choice, and it's what the Tories chose over processing people who've gone to seek asylum and funding our NHS. The crisis in the asylum system is entirely of the Tory party's own making. Own it. Thank you.
Councillor Newgrosh, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have toned down what I was going to say, but it goes along the lines of this issue is 100% the previous Tory government's making. One of the major causes, the elephant in the room, I'd say, the Tory oven-ready Brexit deal, completely neglected to cover a returns agreement with the EU. It was the easiest deal in history, I may remind you. We held all the cards. We took back control. Lies or just deluded? You decide. The other Tory failure that created this, you didn't have anywhere near enough civil servants to process asylum claims. And this has caused, I find it the bare face to bring emotion after all of that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Judd Carter, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's be clear, the Tory government legacy includes unprecedented levels of unsafe channel crossings, a massive inhumane backlog in asylum claims, and the Home Office and Serco acting in tandem to place people into hotels with little or no notice. Labour is left to clean up the Tories' mess, and already this government is accelerating the rate of deportation of people whose claims for asylum are unsuccessful. The minimum standard of any decent elected member of council should demonstrate is to raise concerns and propose solutions to what we disagree with without entertaining offensive views. It's important we challenge irresponsible language used, for example, about proximity of schools and of the hotel being full of, quote, fighting-age men. There are many legitimate community concerns which councillors and officers are addressing, and as councillors, our role is to support legitimate concerns and to challenge divisive ones. For the Conservatives to create the asylum-seeking backlog and then to help to inflame the situation in Altrincham reflects poorly on that grand old party.
Thank you. Councillor Jerome, please.
Thanks, Chair. Altrincham councillors were BCC'd into an email to Councillor Evans after a newsletter and petition drop in Altrincham. And I just wanted to read out the email and some of the comments made by the resident. So, first of all, resident, I'd be interested in any evidence that crime or antisocial behaviour is higher in areas which house migrants. Have you bothered to check before whipping up this hysteria? Would be good to get an answer to that. Next, concerns about the petition. My actual main concern, not listed in the petition, is the continued and divisive rhetoric which you and your colleagues seem intent on promoting. Use your time more productively to promote some community cohesion. And then lastly, the residents signed off. On a positive note, thank you for reminding me why Altrincham Ward so decisively rejected the politics of your party at the last election. It'd be great to get some answers. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Councillor Jerome, I have had hundreds of emails, and two, like you mentioned there, and I've treated those residents with the utmost of respect that they deserved. All I have sought to do is reflect questions offered to me by residents that were not being answered. This situation has been handled appallingly by the Home Office, by this council, and just across the board. And residents know that, feel that, and are simply reflecting that, and nobody was prepared to listen to the residents. Everybody was prepared to tell the residents things, but nobody wanted to listen to their genuine concerns. So with respect to, as we are debating a motion and an amendment, we will support the amendment. But what is surprising is what is missing and what has been removed from the motion for the amendment. Transparency has been removed. Highlighting public concerns and lack of consultation has been removed. I'm conscious it's beeped. Can I have half a minute?
I mean, 10 seconds, maybe.
All right, okay. So it's what's missing from the amendment that speaks volumes for the residents, but I appreciate it's been softened. It is not great, but we will support it and we will work as best we possibly can, but we insist on getting answers for the residents that they are not receiving, and they simply don't believe what they are hearing.
Councillor Frost, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Conservatives funnelled millions into that harebrained scheme to send migrants to Rwanda, a deliberate choice to divert public money from the Home Office, the immigration departments, who should have been processing asylum claims. I'm not naive. Some of those people will not be allowed to stay. But with the Home Office starved of the resources to process the claims, the Conservatives' deliberate choice to fund unworkable nonsense led to this enormous backlog filling our hotels today. Why? Because you lost the right to be heard when you picked a Prime Minister who sent mortgages spiralling and crashed the economy. You lost the trust of the British people on the NHS, on public services. So in a desperate bid to make that election last summer all about immigration, you lent into a crisis of your own making in an ultimately futile bid to remain relevant. Human beings are not pawns in some sort of political game.
Councillor Hartley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, I'd prefer it if 300 men seeking asylum didn't have to reside at the Cresta court, not least for their sake. Having fled their home country, endured an arduous journey where they likely saw people drown, to arrive in the UK and claim asylum, something they are legally entitled to do under international law. There's nothing illegal about them. Forced to share a room with another adult male they'd never met, no recourse to public funds, not allowed to work, an allowance of just £8.90 a week. The Conservatives talk tough about immigration, but they've left the Labour government with an asylum and immigration system in disarray, and other speakers have explained how they've done that. And it's that shocking record of the last Tory government which has led us to arrangements like this, a £2 billion contract with Serco, residents and the council not consulted, council given little notice and no information about the needs of those arriving. Residents have legitimate concerns about the use of the hotel. I recognise that, but it's grossly irresponsible, given what we saw in the summer, for Trafford Conservatives to promote a petition with a clickbait title of "Say No to Migrant Hotels in our area." We are a city of sanctuary. Let us extend a hand of kindness and compassion to those in need, as we did with those seeking asylum from Ukraine, Hong Kong and elsewhere, of course. And as councillors of this borough, let us remember our responsibilities. Rather than stoking the fires of prejudice, let us bring cohesion, harmony and assurance to all our residents, including those seeking refuge here. Thank you.
Councillor Welton, please.
Thank you, Chair. As Altrincham Ward councillors, we have been listening to residents on the doorstep and speaking to businesses in the town centre. We share their concern about how the repurposing of the Cresta Court will impact Altrincham's economy, and we sympathise with all those who have had weddings, parties and functions cancelled by the hotel's owners. But what we've been doing is informing and reassuring people that Altrincham remains one of the best and safest places to live, shop, work and go to school in the whole of Greater Manchester, and that there is no evidence that this is going to change because of the temporary changes at the hotel. Innuendo to say that this is otherwise can only make the impact on Altrincham worse than it needs to be in the run-up to this vital Christmas season. So our message is, have some consideration for Altrincham. Yes, let's have a reasoned debate about our asylum system and question how we got here, but let's deal in facts. Altrincham is a great, safe place to live and do business. That reputation is hard-won, but easily tarnished, and those who so casually undermine it for political gain do the town no favours and clearly do not have the best interests of our wonderful, diverse community at heart.
Councillor Z, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I live close to the Altrincham Town Centre, and I have a wife and a young daughter who go to the local schools. When I heard the Cresta Court Hotel will house 296 young male asylum seekers, I was shocked. This raised serious concerns for the safety of children and the women who regularly walk through the town centre. While the police have worked very hard to reassure the residents, this situation could have been avoided with better planning by the Home Office. I thank the police officers. However, this administration response has been dismissive, simply saying there's no evidence to address residents' avoid safety concerns is not good enough. Considering the community safety, the location of hosting those asylum seekers is not a proper one. This administration has previously been quick to highlight issues under a Conservative government, but now seems reluctant to do the same under Labour government. So I urge the Council to prioritise community safety and the women and the children's safety at all else.
Councillor Spencer, please.
Well, it's amazing how this lot in front seem to have suddenly grown a conscience and woken up to the dangers that women and children face every single day of their lives here in Trafford. The 11,000 women who suffer at the hands of a man in this borough alone every year. And it's funny how the Conservatives basically have been silent on all of this, until now. You've specifically mentioned the proximity of hotels to schools. How out of touch you are when the biggest threat to children's lives are online predators, abuse from family members and poverty, and all of which your government did absolutely nothing about. So you can claim that this is about our safety, you can sit there pretending that you give two hoots about us, but we all see through it. Because this isn't about people seeking asylum, and it's not about women and children. We see exactly what it is. It is whipping up division and scapegoating. It is covering up your own failures. And so I speak on behalf of so many people in our borough when I say it is your dirty politics that isn't welcome here.
Councillor Ennis, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Liberal Democrats strongly associate ourselves with the words of Councillor Parker, Councillor Coggins and others who've spoken in favour of the amendment, and we support the amendment wholeheartedly. The crisis of asylum hotels is a problem entirely of the Conservative Party's own making. For years, their government deliberately closed safe and legal routes and shut down vital resettlement programmes, leaving people with no choice but to risk their lives on dangerous journeys. And at the same time, the Conservatives also slashed foreign aid, the very funding that helps prevent people from needing to flee their homes in the first place. And it wasn't a mistake, it was a choice to abandon responsibility and to politicise human suffering. So in government, the Conservatives turned the tragedy of displaced people into a distraction so that they can drum up resentment about asylum seekers in hotels rather than take responsibility for the role they played in creating this mess in the first place. This was an avoidable crisis, but a crisis the Conservative Party wanted to manufacture. fuelled by a desire to divide people and communities and deflect from the fact that their failure to govern has decimated every corner of British society. The fact that you've brought this motion tonight shows how far you've fallen and why you've lost the trust of so many people in our borough. Desperate politics that is deeply, deeply unwelcome in Trafford.
Councillor Ross, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to come in very briefly to address some of the things that were said about the council's planning. I would advise people to go back and listen to what I said at the start of the meeting. It's clear that some of you may not have been listening close enough. The council officers were notified that this was being considered on the 8th of October. There was nothing then after that until we were told within 72 hours that the hotel was being stood up. In that time, we worked with the voluntary and community faith and social enterprise sectors. We worked with our officers. We worked with partners within the NHS and the police as well. We have been doing a lot behind the scenes and been using our words very, very carefully. So to say that we have been caught unawares or not responded quick enough is false, and I'd hope you retract it.
Councillor Barber, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the last few weeks, we have heard language from the Tories that has risked dividing communities, spreading disinformation, increasing tensions, and dehumanizing refugees. It is also worth noting that only a handful of protesters turned up to the last week outside the hotel, despite the claims that thousands are against the move. The Tory leader himself did not have a clue to respond to the media to confirm what evidence did he have that the claim that these asylum seekers will have private health cover. We've also witnessed this evening, outside the council building, more people from the community, from the public in support, standing up to racism and Islamophobia, and in support of refugees, and hardly anyone, against the move. I also reject the claim that thousands or 6,000 people have taken part in this survey organized by the Tory group for the reasons: A, it's not an independent survey; B, it's not credible, it can easily be a manipulated one; C, we have not been given full information or the breakdown of this survey. At the same time, we must acknowledge the concern, and I welcome what the leader has said and has done. We've also heard our MP for the ASW who has spoken in the Parliament about the issue. I wish to remind all members that great communities are built not just on recourses, but on relationships. Together, we can create a welcoming environment that honours both our compassion and our commitment to the well-being of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lepori.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought Halloween was over, but the Tories appear to be cowering in a corner, hiding from the blue kit reform boogie monster. I had a lot to say about healthcare. I had a lot to say about broken promises. I had a lot to say about this is history repeating itself. There's none old enough in this chamber probably to remember the last time we had a political activism in Europe going on, villainising people. But we've seen it for the past few years from the Tories, whether it's trans people being victimised. It's Trans Day of Remembrance, by the way. Whether it's people like me being victimised, whether it's people seeking asylum being victimised. That's where you've gone. You've screwed the country up, and instead of taking responsibility for all of the political decisions you made, you go and let's just bash the immigrants. Let's bash people seeking asylum. I'm absolutely disgusted. And the fact that I've received abuse online following your meetings from your bots. People are coming for me, apparently. I am disgusted. And I'm really emotional right now. And the fact there's nothing in you, is there? You don't have any remorse about what you've done.
Councillor Patel, please.
The closure of the Cresta Court Hotel did come as a shock, and unlike the dozens of hotels that are already in use for this purpose across the country, it wasn't an anonymous hotel to Trafford residents. It was a landmark building to which many of us had connections. Being at the end of this process as a local authority has been difficult. We're already operating under huge pressures, and I think councils do deserve an improved and more collaborative approach with the Home Office. The speed of this decision wasn't helpful for residents either. I spent some hours at a public meeting and heard a huge range of views and questions, the vast majority of which were reasonable and understandable. This motion is about transparency, accountability and community engagement. When you sail so close to the line that you know you need to read from a script, tell residents it was a decision made by Trafford Council. Inaccurately announce that those seeking asylum receive private health care, a claim that's been shared thousands of times on social media and in national news. When you use loaded language like migrants and swamped, you can't claim that moral high ground in communication or claim that you've got our residents' best interests at heart. You do Altrincham, our borough and our residents a huge disservice.
Thank you, that was quick. Councillor Hurst, please.
I'd like to tell you about two brothers who came here from Afghanistan, the younger of whom I fostered. Their father had helped the British Army and he'd been assured the family would be protected. This wasn't the case and the Taliban came for the boys to either join them or be killed. Joining the Taliban meant policing and potentially killing their neighbours and even their own family. Their parents made them leave. They walked here from Afghanistan believing Britain would protect them after their fathers worked for us. They lost each other on the journey. They saw others die through cold or injury. My foster child nearly drowned crossing the channel. He was 13. He didn't know whether his brother or family were alive or dead. He watched the news from Afghanistan on his phone that showed famine and starvation in his village. His brother made the journey too, and we were able to reunite them. They didn't want to take anything from the UK. They just believed they would be safe here after their father had helped the British. They wanted an education, to work and to contribute. They want to return to their family if they're still alive. I just want to add that I'm councillor in Old Trafford and we have many asylum seekers and refugees living here who are welcomed and wonderful members of our community. They volunteer, work and care for our residents, and I am proud to live in a community so welcoming and so diverse, and I call on all councillors to stand with people seeking asylum and refugees. Thank you.
Councillor Acton, please.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've been in this council chamber for many, many years. I've not heard a speech like Councillor Z, and he should be ashamed of his comments and apologise, actually. And I am proud to say that this authority has previously given warm welcomes to migrant refugees from Hong Kong, Ukraine and Afghanistan, recognising the contributions they have made to our economy and community. I feel a deep sense of empathy for people seeking asylum when fleeing from danger. If I was unfortunate enough to be in a serious, dangerous situation, I would hope that I would be able to flee to a country that welcomed me, and my mantra would be giving hope, not hate.
Councillor Hancock, would you like to speak, to reply? You reserved the right earlier. Yep, Councillor Eckersley then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, this motion and my speech said nothing about refugees. This is about communication and planning from the council to residents. For you all to jump on this and virtue signal like you have and taking the opportunity is nothing to do with the motion or what we're bringing up. This is about communication. It's nothing about race or religion or anything. So what you've all said tonight is absolutely ludicrous, and I'm disgusted by it. Taking an easy opportunity for it. We are a welcoming country, and we are proud to be that. Even your Conservatives in this room are. It does not matter whether migrants are from Uganda, Hong Kong, Eritrea, or Ukraine. However, the key difference here is that we know who is entering our country, who enter this country legally. The residents are simply seeking assurances on who these people actually are. Are we not entitled to be concerned? When a care worker has to have a DBS check in order to be able to work, is that racist? When you enter a country and have to hand over your passport, is that racist? When you go into a pub and they ask for ID, are they being racist?
Could you wrap up, please, Councillor?
Well, it's important, this, so I'll do it as quickly as possible. These migrants, how dare you accuse me and our Conservatives of being racist? It's disgusting. These migrants are arriving without papers and identification. Your Labour MP says that these migrants have been vetted. This is clearly untrue, as our police forces have confirmed that these asylum seekers only have their fingerprints taken, nothing else. Are we not entitled to be concerned? Residents have genuine concerns about this situation. Are we not entitled to be concerned? And I'll leave it at that.
I will now put the amendment to the vote. Can I have a show of hands and keep hands raised while the record is being taken, please? All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? The amendment is carried.